Joining us now in the studio, TalkTV's political correspondent Alicia Fitzgerald. Thanks, Alicia. And Stella Tsantekidou, a former Labour advisor. Down the line, we've also got Conservative MP Paul Scully. Hello to you all. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. Why don't we start with you, Paul? Let's get an overview from you of this interminable story. I mean, we were talking about it on the show yesterday, 24 hours later. If anything, it's heated up. It hasn't cooled down. The Prime Minister says a slippery slope. It's been suggested all morning in all different media outlets that Keir Starmer almost roughed up Sir Lindsay Hoyle to force him to do what he did. Lindsay Hoyle's talked about, MPs being killed or suffering terrible physical harm, and he didn't feel that he could just stand by and let that happen. It's really ramped up, hasn't it? What's your take on what's been going on?
Yeah, it has, Vannessa, and hello to you. It was an absolute shambles yesterday. People must be looking at this thinking, oh my goodness, frankly, a lot of people inside were as well, but oh my goodness, what is going on in our parliament, the mother of democracy? And so essentially what you had, because I was sitting at the back there, just behind the Speaker's chair, we can see when a lot of the conversations were being had in the room behind the Speaker's chair. Effectively, Keir Starmer and the Labour Chief Whip were going into the room there with the Speaker, with no clerks, all invited in. Normally you'd have a clerk in there to help advise. And so that's where the Speaker either decided, because he was getting pressure from the Labour Party, or as he said about the fact that there's intimidation outside the chamber and outside on the streets. Either way, it's really impinging on how Parliament works, and we need to be able to debate and vote without that kind of outside influence. He's admitted today that he made the wrong decision when he was speaking in Parliament, which is to be welcome. I'm going to be interested to see how his conversations go with the party leaders, so that we can make our judgment about whether he's fatally wounded in this in terms of his trust of parliamentarians, or whether he can carry on. I really like him. I really respect him. So let's see what happens over the weekend.
So are you planning on writing a letter?
No, I won't be. I think you've got to have a really high bar. As I've said in the past, when you start getting rid of senior politicians, and especially the Speaker of the House, who has a particular role to play in Parliament, not just for any one party, then you've got to have a really high bar. But on the other hand, he can show no weakness, which may undermine the neutrality that he has, and undermine what's going to happen, because this is setting an awful precedent, which is what we saw in the Brexit days, the bad Brexit days between 2017 and 2019.
I mean, you say he can show no weakness. Sir Lindsay Hoyle has apologised not once but twice. Yesterday, it looked as if he was practically in tears, and I'm not saying that to add, colour and poetic depth to what I'm saying. He really did look as if he was about to start crying. Today, he's apologised again. I don't know, some people might see that as strong. You're very strong to admit that you've been wrong twice. Some might see it as craven weakness to have to apologise not once but twice, and think that, he's really, just shooting his own goals and querying his own pitch by doing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, he's an emotional man, so that it doesn't surprise me that he was, quite teary-eyed in his approach. That's he wears his heart on his sleeve. I think what he's doing, he's being as open as he can with people, and they with parliamentarians, and they will have to judge. And again, as I say, we'll see when we've got more information about who said what to where who said what in those rooms behind the Speaker's chair. But what it ended up as a right mess. No one really knows who they were, where they are. We had a vote which was called after 7 o'clock, which is normally the time that Parliament finishes on the stroke of 7. It happened at 7:02, and it meant that the SNP couldn't even vote on their own motion. So it's supposed to be their opposition day debate. And yes, they were sort of deliberately poking this to try and divide Labour, but ultimately that's their right within the process of Parliament. And to not be able to vote on their own motion, I think does sort of like say this has just gone totally wrong.
And Paul, I'm going to bring my other guest in just a moment, but I'd like to ask you this. How do you think this plays out to members of the public? Because even if you're not interested in this at all and you think it's a whole lot of nonsense, it's a debate that's fairly pointless, it's arcane procedure that members of the public don't need to concern themselves with and couldn't care less about anyway, you cannot ignore it. It has been front page all over the place. It's been absolutely the main fodder of all news bulletins. We can all see the footage of the Tories and the SNP storming out. It doesn't look good, I don't think. What do you think the general impression is?
It's awful. It's awful. It was an absolute shambles. If I was looking in, I would think exactly as you've described it. I think the thing is, though, and bear in mind, of course, this is arcane procedure that we're arguing about, but ultimately there are people still dying, still suffering in Gaza and Israel. And this is all on something that actually is not going to change the dial there anyway, because we're not the ones involved in that conflict. This is just a motion between between various parts of the House in a whole other country from that conflict. We don't run their policies in Israel and indeed Gaza.
OK, so final question. What was the point? What is the point of these Opposition Day debates? Whereas you say, none of the parties in this country, not the governing party or any other, makes any difference, has any influence whatsoever on Hamas or on Israel. So what is the point?
Well, look, I mean, to be fair, I would say that about opposition debates in general, because they are there. They give the opposition parties, and Labour have most of the official opposition. SNP is the third party, gets some chance to have control of the audit paper to make sure they can vent and discuss an issue that's important to them. What does tend to happen, though, they weaponise the result, because we have these big debates, long debates, but ultimately they will then just say how you voted, and all the nuance goes out the window. So it all gets weaponised on social media anyway, frankly.
I'm going to give Alicia the difficult job of giving us a timeline of everything that's gone on. But before I do, let me talk to Stella about this, former advisor to the Labour Party. What do you make of this unedifying spectacle still playing out before our very eyes? Really, it hasn't stopped yet.
Yeah, I think there are a few points that we need to make. I agree with Paul that there needs to be a very high bar when it comes to removing a politician from office, such as the office of the Speaker, particularly because if it sets a precedent and they remove Sir Lindsay Hoyle, who is a former Labour MP, and they replace him, let's say, with a Conservative MP, then this means that when Labour is in government, there will be a precedent for doing this kind of thing when there is such a big disagreement. So if I were the Conservative Party, instead of asking for Sir Lindsay Hoyle to be removed, which they haven't done, there is about 50 MPs who have said that they want him removed. The Rishi Sunak has not yet said that he doesn't support the Speaker continuing in his position. But if I were in their position, I would support him, because Lindsay Hoyle, as Speaker under a Labour government after this event, is going to be extra strict with the Labour Party and a Labour government. So I would keep him. Now, the other point that I need to make here is that this was a big issue because Lindsay Hoyle was elected after a very controversial speaker, John Bercow. A lot of MPs had problems with the way that John Bercow was a speaker and all of the manoeuvres that he did during the Brexit debates and the Brexit votes.
And it was felt that he wasn't impartial. It was felt you could see where his view was going. It was felt that he had a very hectoring and bullying manner. There were many things about him that really didn't appeal to virtually everybody on all sides of the House.
But very importantly, he was a former Conservative MP who was supported by the Labour Party, whereas now you have a former Labour MP looking like he's favouring the Labour Party, which is obviously what a lot of MPs will be virtue signalling, not virtue signalling, I'm sorry, they will be showing that they have an issue with. However, the rest of the public will be looking at this and thinking the purpose of an opposition day debate, if the public knows what an opposition day debate is, which the vast majority of the public don't really care about the titles that we give to all of these parliamentary processes, they will be thinking, wait a minute, you have this incredibly dire situation in Gaza, and you have MPs fighting over procedure. And at the same time, you're looking at what's happening in Parliament more generally, and you do have this sense that no laws are being made, there is no new policy being passed that is going to make a difference to people's life. People are really, really tired of this electioneering, and the only reason why is because there has been this feeling for a very long time now that everyone is just waiting for the elections. The government is not really governing, the opposition party is waiting for their turn, and there is no real policy, no real debate.
I know Alicia wants to come in on this, but I can't resist asking Paul. Paul, the idea that Stella has suggested that the government isn't really governing, that nothing's really happening, that this is a barely caretaker government just hanging about till the election before you already pack your bags and you're out the door.
No, because if you look at, I understand why the narrative might look like that, but actually, if you look at what's happening, for example, in the economy, you see inflation coming down. Hopefully, interest rates will start to follow. You look at foreign direct investment actually being the second highest at the moment current in the world. So there are those grassroots roots coming through in the economy at the moment. So all of those kind of things we are working on. But nonetheless, when you see unedifying things like this, it's terrible. And what it also means is that for people looking from the outside, it's a clear sign that if you intimidate MPs, this is what happens. You get your way. So you cannot reward that kind of behaviour. We've got to be strong as a parliament, not just as a government.
Alicia, over to you.
Of what part?
Anything. I can see your expression, despite the fact that you're a magnificent, objective journalist, is reflecting various
work on the poker
thoughts,
face,
feelings, emotions. There are a few tells, let's put it that way.
I think there is truth in both what Stella and what Paul have said. I'm just going to quickly pick up on something Paul said purely because it was the most recent comment in that, the government are working really hard on the economy. I think lots of people in the public would probably take a little bit of issue on that just because the tangible impact of that isn't really coming through yet. So I think lots of people would challenge that. In terms of the squabble that we heard yesterday, I think it's totally fair to say that most of the public look at this with their head in their hands and just think this is beyond ludicrous and feel really quite embarrassed at the way that everything played out yesterday, especially because of the topic that this has evolved from. There is a huge crisis going on at the moment. There are so many lives being lost. And I think we really kind of lost that yesterday in this debate. The debate has now become about the Speaker. It's now become about three parties playing political football with each other. It's become about all of these things, which maybe, if it was about another topic, would be really impactful and would really matter. But when it's about something that is so severe and that so many people in the UK really passionately care about, that's why we're seeing these protests. That's why all of this is happening in the first place. That's why the SNP chose to debate it in Parliament. I think when people think about that and then see what happened yesterday, people just feel really, really angry and just quite upset about what happened.
And Stella, all of this to save Sir Keir Starmer's face.
We do not know what actually happened. We do not know what exactly was said between Sir Keir Starmer.
No, but we know he urged, because he said he did.
Yes.
Now, there's urging and urging. There's urging where you have your collar felt and push someone against the wall and threaten to kick their head in. There's urging where you say, now, come on, listen, you really need to do this for this reason. And that reason, it's been suggested that it might have been intimated that maybe, he would not necessarily be re-elected as MP, which he needs to be to carry on being
Keir
Speaker.
Starmer denies
There's all sorts of suggestions about what might have been said, aren't there?
He denies that Keir
Said he urged. I wonder what urged means.
He denies that he put pressure on the Speaker.
Except urged. But hang on though. But Stella, the word urged is not at all the same as the word asked.
But I'm sorry, but the government urges, the Speaker is urged to do all sorts of things on a daily basis by all sorts of MPs, not just from the Liberal.
Just run that past Alicia. Is he urged?
I would probably agree with you slightly on this in terms of him denying that he asked this, saying, I didn't ask the Speaker to do this, but I urged him to do that. I mean, it kind of, they're very similar words.
Let's just run that past Paul Scully. I think the word urged implies a kind of urgency and emphasis, a kind of pressure. It's, if I ask you to come, I ask you. If I urge you, I beseech you. I'm putting extra oomph into it. I'm not just asking you. That would be I'm asking you. I'm urging you. I urge you to take what I say seriously. I urge you to do as I ask you to do. That's very different from just asking.
2 points there, Vannessa. First of all, if he was just asking it was just a simple thing, he wouldn't have needed 40 minutes with him and the Chief Whip in the room behind the Speaker's chair whilst Chris Bryant was filibustering another speech so that they could have those conversations. So that was pretty, full on, obviously, what was going on. Secondly, when the second bit after, when he was just interviewed then, he said, I did not threaten the Speaker. He was asked by other Labour MPs. He just kept pivoting back to, I did not. He didn't answer that question. That's either because someone else did, or it's because he cannot guarantee that someone else didn't.
Stella?
Now we're doing the thing that we are accusing politicians of doing. We are literally fighting over such minutiae, such tiny details in a broader debate that is so important in a situation where lives are being lost as we speak. And our politicians are incapable of taking leadership and talking about the issue clearly without resolving to hide behind procedure. And I think one of the things, Freddie Hayward said that in the New Statesman today, it does seem like basically this is all displacement for members of parliament and politicians. They feel incapable of speaking and showing real leadership on this incredibly once-in-a-lifetime important issue. And they're trying to hide behind policy, behind procedure, and they're being angry about procedure because that's the only thing that they feel like they're allowed to.
Except let me ask you something. How does any politician in this country, any politician, including the Prime Minister or the Foreign Secretary, take, as you've just said, leadership over what goes on between Israel and Hamas? If they wanted to, if they were determined to, if they weren't, as you suggest, taking refuge behind procedure, but they wanted to take, as you say, leadership, what could anybody in the British Parliament do, from any party, in any position, to influence what goes on in the Middle East?
Distance themselves from the completely dysfunctional current Israeli government.
But how does that make any difference, whether they do or don't distance themselves?
And call for a ceasefire earlier. They should have called for a ceasefire.
But how is that
earlier.
leadership? Because
They
you can't
need to
lead. You
intervene.
can't lead to make any difference, can you?
They should have intervened far earlier.
But they can't
should have
intervene.
Criticized the Israeli government far earlier. That is what leadership is. Leadership is not gaslighting the public, telling them, I am seeing the images you are seeing. I am acknowledging what is going on in the Middle East, and I am criticizing a fellow government, a government that is supposed to be an ally to the UK.
Let's see whether Paul Scully agrees with that.
No, look, that's not leadership. That is a particular opinion that you've just taken there. The leadership that the Prime Minister has said and the Foreign Secretary has said is that we want to have an immediate pause so that we can get humanitarian aid, then to have a sustainable ceasefire, rather than just sitting there saying, oh, let's have a ceasefire, which actually we know won't stick. Hamas and Israel both said it's not going to happen and not going to stick. So you've got politics is the art of the possible. We've got to deal with what we can actually do and try to deliver. That's leadership, getting that through.
Let's just bring Alicia in because we haven't yet had a chance to explain. We don't need to start right at the beginning all over again.
I will save everyone.
Yeah, give me the last sort of, let's say the last 3-4 hours. And also, more interestingly, I suppose, even more interestingly, what do you think might happen next?
So obviously we've seen the amount of signatures on the early day motion to show no confidence in the Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, massively increased. We're now in the 60s, which is a lot of MPs showing their general dissatisfaction with the Speaker in his role now. Just to clarify though, and please don't bang your head against the wall when I say this, there isn't a threshold for this early day motion for it to actually mean anything. So it's not to say that, oh, if this reaches X amount of signatures, that means the Speaker has to step down. All it really does is show that there is a big amount of MPs who are increasingly dissatisfied with the Speaker and they potentially would like him to leave his role. In terms of what we've heard from other leaders, so Keir Starmer, we've obviously heard totally deny that he threatened the Speaker yesterday, although he did say that he urged him to have a broad debate. So you can take from that whatever you want to take from that. We've heard Stephen Flynn, the leader of the SNP in Westminster, repeatedly reiterate what he said yesterday pretty much and say that he has no faith in the Speaker, no confidence in the Speaker, and that he thinks that his role is intolerable. And then for the first time, we also heard Rishi Sunak today say that what the Speaker did yesterday was concerning, but not necessarily say that that means he thinks the Speaker needs to go